Good morning once again, ladies and gentlemen. Want to welcome you again to another program, a special program here at allpointstv.com. I'm George Moss, normally the host of the program called What's Going On that comes on at 2 o'clock here at the studio. And we are glad to have in the studio this afternoon a gentleman that has been in a couple of times with us, and he's in here to give us an update. That's Mr. Darwin Jiles, who is the Ethnic Vice Chair of the Michigan GOP. And I want to welcome you again to the studio.
Welcome.
We want to talk this time a little bit about the city council here.
Correct.
In the city of Flint. So why don't you tell us about some of the things?
Well, starting out, just congratulating Karen Weaver for victory on becoming mayor. I think it's very important as a person who loves Flint, who's advocated for Flint. Again, my father was a victim of a homicide in 2008 in Flint under the former failed leadership of Dane Walling, where my father did not even receive any type of investigative process, and it was clearly a homicide. The lead detective who passed away actually shortly afterwards gave me all the vital details to this, and so it's good to see that former administration leave Flint and definitely lose this election. However, things are so critical right now that we can't have an Obama savior type of syndrome right now. Right now it's time for us to dig our heels in and really get to work, roll up our sleeves, stop the excuses, and now hold our own people accountable as a people governed within this community to make sure that we're going to hold our leadership accountable to what they said when they campaigned, but more importantly, that we do our job to pray for Dr. Karen Weaver, to do our job to within the community, within the school system, to do the things that we need to do to uphold, to get rid of the former reputation of whether it's Woodrow Stanley being corrupt in leadership, whether, outside of this, when you look throughout the state, there's very few minorities that are of the grassroots in the community that even represents within leadership. So I think we need to kind of change our perspective against how we've seen Woodrow Stanley in the past within Flint, and not overlooking any mistakes or past failures, but knowing that us being in leadership here within a community is nearly 80% African American is very important, that we represent the values of the Christian values and heritage we have here, more importantly. But going forward, we're going to have a battle here with City Council. More importantly, I would like to announce a plan to flip the entire city council. This is something that's going to unfold, and it's going to be seen in a variety of different publications going forward from here, and press conference as well that could possibly be held. And we're going to challenge those corrupt council members who cut back deals to underhand the people here in Flint and the Flint residents who voted to go to Flint River water without even knowing the procedures, without even knowing and doing the due process of researching and supporting this corrupt administration that we've had for some time now. And I think that is the critical key to going forward. The battle is not won completely yet. We must go in and flip the city council. Those who fought and stood up, you have no problem of understanding that your spot and what you've done, we appreciate for Flint. But if you were the person that was backdooring, making deals with Mayor Walling, making backdoor political special interests, compromises for yourself to gain political gain, that is the exact type of Darrell Buchanan leadership we don't need here in Flint.
I'll tell you, one of the things I've always been very disgusted with in terms of black leadership is that we have a history of persons that were dying and putting life on the line to bring a result about.
Correct.
We were disenfranchised, and now that we have an opportunity to be in power centers, it's been very disappointing to see
Correct.
how we've held the power once it's been placed in our hands. So what do you think it will take in the city of Flint to bring about the kind of changes you're talking about?
Well, I think you just hit the nail on the head, and of course I don't want to minimize the failures on the African Americans' part to not govern ourselves like we should. There's no reason why only 13,000 people came out when your people are paying water bills to $600,000 water bills. It's crazy. I live, not far from Flint, and I live in a suburban area. Flint is my hometown. I've been in Flint all my life, basically. But the truth of the matter is that would have never happened in some suburban area. You would have heard even the idea of something like that all flashed throughout the media and the news. Grassroots soccer moms would have known about it and would have been protesting against it. Mm-hmm. And we let this thing happen where we couldn't even have affordable drinking water. They were not only having poisonous water that had lead poisoning, but they were charging us unaffordable rates for this. This happened under a corrupt city hall and council members that need to be replaced. I don't care if it's Scott Kincaid, if it's Brian Nolan. I don't care if it's Donna Poplar. I don't care who it is. Jason, was it Freeman, Josh Freeman, or any of these people who were dealing with walling and making these type of deals to further themselves and lying about it to the public. City council passed, and I think the vote was 7-1 or 5-1 somewhere. And I know you can research the actual results. And there was only one person that voted against this whole deal. Okay, the mayor never stepped out, not one time, and so it's important for us to understand, now that Walling's gone, understand it was the political establishment that brought Walling here from D.C. He was a corrupt politician from the time he came.
Well, looking at, we have a new mayor now in the city of Flint. What do we need to be doing in terms of making sure we can surround Miss Weaver, Dr. Weaver, with the kinds of energy and support she needs in order to get some of the things done?
So first and foremost, not lowering the standard. We have to hold all leadership at a higher standard. Getting rid of the leaders who sold us out is critical, because we have a new mayor, but she's going to have to work with this body of council people that are here. The next thing is making sure we uphold moral values in our community. That's really important, and ethics within the city hall. Again, not having a savior complex. Dr. Weaver is not going to be a savior of Flint by herself. It's going to take a community. And you spoke in our former interview, and of course even off the air, about in your time, in your day, we were a people that were much more closer. And we would never accept drugs. We would never accept excessive anything that could immoralize us as people and tear us down, even though we were dealing with Jim Crow and racism at times throughout our history here in America. So we cannot lower the standard. The standard is going to be even higher for Dr. Weaver, and the criticisms are going to come on even stronger for Dr. Weaver. So it's important for us to pray for her, to step up and be involved. Get out, make sure your voice is heard, and stand up and do something about it. We can't allow the past failures, because I love to use Woodrow Stanley as an example, because I've had a chance to make amends with him in different areas, but also appreciate the fact of the positive contributions that he did do. But understanding too, part of a leader when you make mistakes is repentance and moving forward. And now that we have a new day, and I believe that all those leaders, even putting Karen Weaver up to help her run for mayor, was all part of that new initiative. And I've talked to these individuals, so I do believe they've had a change of heart in a lot of different areas. But it's critical we don't lower that standard.
I think when blacks get in power, the standard should be raised.
Oh, definitely.
In this sense, when I was in school, one of the things we kept hearing, I'm from Birmingham, and I'm in the deep south at the time. We had Bull Connor as the police commissioner. Correct. And all I heard in those classrooms was that you got to be twice as good. Correct. And they were saying that to us because they understood the barriers were so high that if we were just simply on the same level, we would not make it. So the standards were raised for us. And when I got into the university level, I found out that my skill level was of such a caliber that I didn't have to take any apologies in terms of going to the classroom, apologize for being there. Correct. I was there because I had earned my spurs. And so I think that within the context of that history that we've come from, this idea of lowering the standards, this affirmative action nonsense, for example, is an embarrassment. Correct. It's an insult. So I have no problem with Weaver coming in, and I think the standards should be raised. And I think that bar should be one we reach for and expect of our leadership. Let's expect more of them if we are going to take power. We take it for what reason? To raise the standard. Correct.
And let's look at, number one, a spirit of excellence, and for those who are believers and understand how important it is from a biblical perspective, but even look at other minorities. You look at Africans, you look at Chaldeans, you look at a lot of different people, even Arabs, some other places, and the high standards that they hold within their own communities of leadership and authority, and you see those same principles. So there's no excuse excuse for us, as blacks within our inner city places, whether it be Detroit, whether it be Flint, Pontiac, or any of these areas, or Flint. I think it's very important to have that standard and not lower that standard. And I think we genuinely do have again, an opportunity to hold our own accountable and to dictate how things are going to go for us. If the school systems are not right, we can get up and change that. If the mayor and the city hall isn't right, we can do something to change that. And we have to get that ingrained in us culturally, because culturally, I think it's sad to say, most young black people don't fully understand the power of being politically aligned correctly.
I want to say this, Darwin, I think you're making an excellent point. And to Dr. Weaver, you're coming in fresh and you're coming in anew. I think this is a time, given all the things that are happening in this city and in the state and country, that this is a time to set a standard that could be the standard of the nation. And coming in under this kind of arrangement, you've been voted in 50-some-odd% of the vote.
Correct.
Let's see what we can do to kind of raise the bar, and maybe we become the model for the rest of the nation.
Correct. And I think that starts with, again, setting the standard for political leadership, purging Flint from political corruption, period. From the past woes and past legacies of people and who they think ruined Flint. When I actually been involved in politics at the state level as ethnic vice chair, I realized that there really are a lack of minorities in leadership, period. And it's very important that we don't have an excuse not to try as hard or even twice as hard as the next person, but be that change we need to be, practicing excellence. Even during my campaign, when a lot of funds didn't come in, when smear tactics were brung out, I didn't quit and cry foul or racism. I stood up. I faced those issues. I faced the questions, and I moved forward with integrity. And that's what it takes, and it will be rewarded. So now that I believe Dr. Karen Weaver is elected, I hope this doesn't become political, because I don't think it's political for her. I really do think she has an opportunity, and I believe we can do that. So hopefully that continues in the right path and we can come together. And again, this is a step in the right direction. It's going to take a lot and plenty more mayors from here to better the city the long term as it needs to. But this is an opportunity. After this water crisis is the worst I've ever seen with the city, period. I mean,
Do you see it as a resource problem as well? I mean, do they have the resources in Flint to fix the problems that's affecting the city?
There is an infrastructure issue, and I've been briefed on a lot of this stuff. Even believe it or not, Eric Mays did a very good job with knowing a lot of the critical details and holding the establishment accountable. So, good job, Eric Mays, for doing that. But it is a resource thing. I think we didn't have visionary leaders who look down the road. I think that's one of the biggest problems. Everybody in politics is like that. We're so right now in the moment sometimes, when we have to have areas like Flint and other areas, we need visionary leaders that can look 5, 10, 15 years down the road. And again, I don't credit Flint Master Plan to be from Walling, because it was a lot of Flint and Kettering University professors that helped draft this, and a lot of community think tanks. But we need to graph a real master plan for the urban and black community. We need to be able to have something that's going to be a blueprint of our voices and the values and the things that we have to do that. So hopefully Dr. Karen Weaver will be able to help bridge that gap and do that. So if we are having infrastructure problems, the public will really know about it. I mean, we didn't hear about this problem till now. I mean, we didn't hear anyone voicing these concerns. In fact, most of the political campaigns, a lot of them throughout the state, and especially in Flint, I've been a part of, and none of the candidates really brung up a lot of these infrastructural issues. So as we dig deeper and be a little more and even analytical, I'm pretty sure there's going to be more issues that's going to come up. So hopefully we can proactively address these issues and move forward. But just a few things that I hope to see Dr. Karen Weaver do as city council is replaced those who, again, committed a lot of just poor decisions for themselves against the city of Flint, is increasing funding for mental health. I think that is something. You have a lot of drug addiction in Flint that has to be addressed within our culture. We have a lot of the public school system. We need more parent and community involvement. You also have the 501c police nonprofit. We need to really maximize maximize what we can do there to gain more funds for our police officers. And we can create a culture here where we can respect law enforcement, respect every American despite their race, and we can do that. But it's going to take leadership, leaders that are strong, leaders that won't compromise. They're built on principle, American traditional values, and they need to stand for something.
Yes, leaders that won't divide us against each other.
Correct.
And let us come together and unite behind common principles.
Correct, common principles, and that's it. And you know, Flint has always had those people here. So I'm just hoping Dr. Karen Weaver can do a good job, and we can help her with picking those people from the community that can bridge those gaps, because they're here. I've worked alongside a lot of them for years now, and so they just need a voice. They just need to be helped out, and I believe we can do that. I know I'm going to promote for it, and of course, you know, I'm going to stand up for, you know, regardless, because these are principles that I've taken in, you know, as I stated before, since my father's passing. That is what got me involved, period. Involved in politics locally. It was never about politics. I never even really sought to run for office. And so since I finished my master's degree, throughout this process, you know, happily and newly married now, and I'm really at a good point and place in my life. So activism is probably phasing out for me after this stage. I think this will probably be my last national election or anything that I'm a part of. But definitely there's going to be a fight with city council here, and we're going to have to flip city council, because these leaders, with Darrell Buchanan, and I worked for Darrell Buchanan's campaign, and he was completely against walling, but people told me about Darrell Buchanan and his character, and I never believed them, because I always give a person, you know, my own chance of getting to know him before I judge him or anything. And for him to come out and really be a slimeball politician and endorse Walling after what he's seen happen, and say that he's better at Flint, or that he's helped bring jobs to Clio Road, or just give him an endorsement, Brian Nolan. All these guys are former council people and council people who are just looking after themselves, and those type of black people we don't really need to be in political office, because they're parasites of special interests. I mean, that's what they're about, special interests in themselves. And I don't agree with a lot of things that's been done with a lot of our council people, and even Darrell Buchanan in our past. I think we could have been more inclusive with everybody. But if you compromise and you don't have any real morals, that you can just work with anybody for your own benefit and what you can get from something, that's the wrong person. Because Flint needs to have servant leaders that are going to give from their heart, leaders that are going to give if they don't get anything monetarily in return, leaders that necessarily are going to get political promotion, not because of the deals they make necessarily, or the compromises or the special interests, but because they stand for what the people need, they advocate those values well, and they stand and they fight the right fight. Those are the people that's going to is going to get political promotion.
Let me ask you this about your title. Mm-hmm. You are the ethics vice chair
Correct.
of the Michigan GOP. How does your job function interface, if it does at all, with local politics, like in the City of Flint?
Well, it directly does, because it's a primarily ethnic community, and of course, you know,
it's urban, kind of like you center around the urban community.
Well, it's all ethnic community, period. Okay. So whether it's Irish, Arab, whether it is, you know, Iraqi, whether it's, you know, Syrian, I've worked with people throughout the state, you know, which I govern those type of races, and I deal with that. But primarily, yeah, it's the minority community that I represent, and that I'm going to do that for the values that are in the Republican platform, not the Michigan GOP or the Michigan Republican Party, because I think they are as corrupt as they come when it comes to just being for the elites. And I think that that's something that needs to be stated under Ronna Romney, who is Mitt Romney's niece, who's running the chair of the Michigan Republican Party. So with all that being said, I think that is where our integrity for the minorities come in. Be informed. Don't be, with a person because of their political affiliation. Be informed. Love the Constitution, because that's the safest thing we have right now to balance our government. And the Founding Fathers knew that. And they knew the American traditional values and biblical values that were attached to Judeo values that kept our culture and was made our Constitution different from anyone else in the world. So those things are very, very critical. And we just have not had those type of leaders in a long time. So it was very refreshing for Dr. Karen Weaver to get elected. It was also refreshing for her to stand on the Constitution and a lot of the same values that I've campaigned for years, so that she definitely got elected. And a lot of people wanted to vote for her that were beyond political lines. So
you weren't surprised by the outcome of the election?
No, I wasn't surprised. In fact, I did, like I said, I noticed certain people doing anything they can to cut deals. And Mayor Walling, former Mayor Phil Walling, was really a person that was about buying people, and he would cut any deal. He really was he did a good job at exploiting the black leadership, pastors, and a lot of things, so people who work for him, and people supported him just because of what he can give them. And that is the wrong type of leader to have involved in politics and government. For the minority communities have suffered a lot. We've been through enough, but we don't need excuses. We need personal responsibility. We need conservative values, and I'm all for helping people be more moderate and just being for principles and not just political affiliation. But for so long, I mean, that's exactly what's been going on here. And whoever had the pockets, the money won. In most cases, whoever could go out and just make himself available for all the corrupt motives or reasons he could, got most of the support. And so this time I think the backlash was to such in which we came together. Many people of different values for the right cause, which was to support a grassroots candidate. And I think that was a very good thing, It's just sad that more people didn't get involved with this, because this was a very good time for people to come up and make their voice be heard. And again, I've fought out here for so long in Flint that I've seen the politics on both sides. So I do think there should be some positive results coming forward. And I'm looking forward again to work. I'm gonna even be here working and doing as much as I can to help out. And
what do you think you need to do in Genesee County? We are a stronghold for the Democratic Party. How do you see the politics playing out in the future, where you can kind of make an inroad?
Well, again,
have more balance
I
in
think
the politics and
pressing for conservatism is very important, because it emphasizes fiscal responsibility. It emphasizes being pro-life. I'm a strong advocate against abortion, because not only have I experienced abortion and being a part of it from a male's perspective, I know how much evil that really is. In the inner city, in a culture of abortion within the inner city, most teenagers who may get someone pregnant or be a part of a pregnancy automatically think Planned Parenthood. And most people don't know that.
Really?
It is almost that we didn't even know what Planned Parenthood really was. It's a butcher shop. It really is. But we were culturally trained like that. So I've had to admit, my own faults to having that false and wrong and immoral perspective, and stand out heavily against that. But helping individuals, number one, become politically involved is going to automatically increase their chances to voting for the right platform. Not only being informed, but the more they do research for each candidate, look up their voting records and things like that, they're going to probably see high taxation is not going to help us, because that takes away when you work. Most people are not incentivized to work. If when they work, they're just going to have their money taken by the government. That's a clear one for anybody in Flint, Michigan. I mean, that's just common sense. But understanding the balance in between that, and with Republicans being such a poor example in taxation and big government, trust me, I don't think they're going to want to vote for Republicans, but they are going to want those values. How can we be fiscally sound? How are we going to be socially, sound in the sense of, social activism? How can we stand up, since we have so many broken families in the inner city? How can we stand up for traditional families and marriage? And that's important. And I think as a culture, not even politically, but as a culture, we need to develop those values and go from there. And I think that will make a stronger Flint. I think that will make a stronger person. And again, I believe the person who won was the right person, and she's represented those values as well, without prejudice, without bias, being open to work with any and everybody. I think that's her.
I look forward to your continued involvement in politics, because I think you're on the right course. We've got to get more principles injected into the political arena, and until we do that, we're not going to be able to right this ship. I want to thank you for coming in again, Darwin. It's always a pleasure to listen to you and hear your perspective. Darwin's a young man. He's the Michigan GOP vice chair, and he's, as you can see here, he's a lightning rod for change. And want to commend you for what you're doing. Okay, that's going to be a wrap for today in this program, this special program here at allpointstv.com. Want you to stay tuned, as always, to all the programs here at the studio, and we will be in touch. Until that time, I want you to follow your dream, because if you don't follow your dream, you'll never know what's on the other side of the rainbow.